Today, we unearth the story of how a simple civilian, armed with intuition and a file, solved a crisis that had stumped the entire American military and saved countless lives in the process. January 23, 1943, Eglin Field Proving Ground, Florida. The thermometer showed a mere 14 degrees Fahrenheit. It was an unusually bitter cold for the Florida Panhandle. Samuel Green watched as the weapon before him malfunctioned catastrophically for the 17th time that morning. The Browning M 2.50 caliber machine gun, the standard armament for American aircraft, was frozen solid on its test mount. Vapor rose from the barrel, a silent testament to its failure in the cold. Major Robert Johnson of the Army Air Force's Armament Laboratory flung his clipboard into the icy sand in sheer exasperation. "This can't go on, Green. We have 423 B-17 stationed in England right now, and each one carries 13 of these guns. That's 5,499 weapons that will freeze the instant they climb past 20,000 feet. The 8th Air Force is destroying German fighters at a 3-to-1 ratio when the guns actually fire. When they jam, our bombers are nothing but defenseless targets." Samuel Green, a 52-year-old civilian toolmaker from Connecticut without a high school diploma, military service, or any weapon design experience, studied the failed gun with a look that blended aggravation with intense focus. The Army Ordnance Specialists had labeled the issue unsolvable. The engineers from Browning and Company had attempted every conventional fix, yet the gun remained jammed, while American airmen perished in the skies over Europe because their weapons failed. Green retrieved a small notepad from his tool bag and wrote a single line that would change automatic weapon design across the globe. The issue isn't the gun itself. The issue is that we're trying to force the gun to operate the way we believe it should, rather than allowing the gun to show us how it needs to operate. Major Johnson stared at the civilian who spoke in such puzzles. "Green, that is completely illogical. This weapon is an engineered system. It functions on established physical principles. We have test data, engineering blueprints, and mathematical projections." Green pulled a well-used machinist's file from his bag. "With all due respect, Major, your mathematical projections didn't design this firearm. John Browning designed it by instinct. I am a toolmaker. I understand instinct. Grant me 1 week and the authority to alter this weapon in a manner that will appall your engineers, and I will make it so it never jams again." Neither man knew that this instant would initiate the most contentious alteration in the history of U.S. military arms. In just 3 months, Green's unthinkable solution would turn the .50 caliber Browning from a finicky instrument into the most dependable machine gun ever created. Within 6 months, his changes would preserve the lives of thousands of American aircrew. The established mathematics of automatic weapon design were on the verge of being rewritten by a civilian toolmaker with a file and unshakable belief. The Browning M 2.50 caliber machine gun was the last great work of John Moses Browning. Created in 1918, it had become omnipresent throughout American military operations by 1942. Every heavy bomber carried multiple .50s. Fighter planes used them as their main armament. Ground vehicles were equipped with them. Warships mounted them in countless positions. The United States military had fully adopted the .50 caliber as its universal heavy machine gun. Combat exposure uncovered a disastrous flaw at altitudes exceeding 20,000 feet, where temperatures plunged to -30 Fahrenheit. The guns started failing with alarming regularity. The numbers from November and December of 1942 were appalling. Out of 213 B-17 missions flown, crews reported weapon failures on 161 of them, a 76% failure rate. The average number of jammed guns per aircraft was 4.7 out of a total of 13. The human toll was immediate. German fighter pilots soon identified the trend and focused their attacks on bombers whose guns had stopped working. In December 1942 alone, 14 B-17s were destroyed after their defensive weapons failed due to jamming. This represented 140 airmen killed or captured because their guns malfunctioned. The Army Ordnance Department launched a massive investigation. Engineers pinpointed several causes. Lubricants congealed in the extreme cold, metal parts contracted and tightened tolerances, and moisture condensed and froze inside the mechanisms. From October 1942 to January 1943, standard adjustments were tested extensively. Special cold weather lubricants, stricter ammunition controls, heating pads, and increased part clearances. Nothing worked. The .50 caliber malfunction rate stayed above 60%. $2 million were spent with negligible progress. Samuel Green entered this emergency almost by chance. He was employed by Pratt & Whitney in Hartford, Connecticut, as a master toolmaker focused on precision gauge work. 37 years of 6-day work weeks crafting the tools that others used to assemble engines. When Pratt & Whitney secured a contract to produce M2 machine guns, their test models exhibited the same cold weather jamming. The factory superintendent, frantic for an answer, offered a $1,000 reward to any employee who could fix the problem. He declared that every engineer who had inspected this weapon claims the design is flawless. Therefore, the flaw must be external. We are not permitted to change Browning's design. It is already perfect. Green found this logic disturbing. In 37 years, he had learned that no design is perfect. Every machine has idiosyncrasies that only reveal themselves through operation. Theoretical perfection and practical reliability are not identical. That night, Green inspected a failed prototype weapon. He took it apart completely, measuring every component. Everything was within the specified tolerance. Everything was precisely as designed, yet the weapon had failed. As he put it back together slowly, sensing how each piece interacted, he detected something. The bolt carrier fit very exactly in its channel, but when Green pushed it by hand, he felt a slight resistance at specific spots. He inspected the channel more closely. The surfaces were perfectly machined, but the channel had an almost invisible curve, less than 0.02 of an inch, over 12 inches, well within acceptable limits. But Green theorized this minuscule imperfection was causing binding. In warm conditions, it was insignificant. In cold conditions, with thickened grease, it was just enough to cause a jam. That night in his basement workshop, Green began an experiment that would shock Army engineers. Using a precision file, he carefully removed metal from the bolt carrier, making it 0.03 of an inch narrower. This created a clearance that exceeded the official specifications. By engineering standards, he had destroyed the weapon. By Green's reasoning, he had given the bolt carrier the space to cycle smoothly, even with minor imperfections. The next day at the test range, the altered weapon was placed in a freezing chamber at -30 Fahrenheit for 4 hours. Then test fired. It operated without a flaw. 100 rounds, 200 rounds, 500 rounds, no jams. The range officer was astonished, then alarmed. "You altered a military weapon without permission. You changed the dimensions beyond the specified tolerances." "Green, that is against regulations." Green replied calmly, "The specifications produce a weapon that jams. My alteration produces a weapon that functions. Which outcome is more important?" Within hours, Green was before the plant manager and the Army Ordnance Liaison, Captain Robert Mitchell. Captain Mitchell was livid about the unauthorized modifications that could potentially put troops at risk. But the plant manager contended they should confirm whether the alteration actually worked before rejecting it. Mitchell consented to send the weapon to Eglin Field for full evaluation. The weapon reached Eglin Field on January 18th. Major Johnson was doubtful, but out of options. On January 23rd, in 14-degree weather, he mounted Green's modified weapon for cold weather trials. The outcome was remarkable. 2,000 rounds without a single failure. Placed in a deep-freeze chamber at -50 Fahrenheit for 12 hours, it fired instantly with no jams. It was deliberately contaminated with sand and grime. It kept on firing. It performed perfectly under conditions where standard weapons consistently failed. Johnson immediately requested Green report to Eglin Field to detail his modification. On January 26th, Green arrived. He brought his tools and a perspective that would directly conflict with military engineering tradition. The meeting included Green, Johnson, 3 Ordnance Department engineers from Aberdeen Proving Ground, and 2 representatives from Browning Arms. The mood was tense. Major Johnson started with the facts. Mr. Green's modified weapon has shown 100% reliability under conditions where standard weapons fail 60 to 70% of the time. Mr. Green, please describe exactly what you did. Green sketched a simple diagram of the bolt carrier and its channel. I made the bolt carrier smaller, by 0.03 of an inch. This provides it room to move even when the channel isn't perfectly straight and when the cold makes everything contract. Standard tolerance presumes a perfect channel, but channels are not perfect. A larger clearance lets the bolt travel smoothly, despite small imperfections. An Aberdeen engineer with a doctorate protested instantly. Mr. Green, what you describe is mechanically invalid. The specified clearances are calculated to guarantee optimal cycling. Increasing the clearance worsens all performance metrics. Your modification contravenes the fundamental principles of automatic weapons design. Green listened patiently, then answered in a way that stunned the room. Sir, I don't comprehend your mathematics, but I comprehend machinery. I have worked with machinery for 37 years. Your calculations claim my modification should not work, but it does work. Perhaps your calculations are incorrect. The room broke into chaos. The dispute raged until Major Johnson stepped in. This argument is pointless. We have an emergency that is killing American airmen. Mr. Green has provided a solution. Our task is to decide if it can be applied to all M2 weapons. I am ordering a full testing program. If you are finding this tale as gripping as we are telling it, you need to subscribe to Rootvolutionary right now. Stories of the everyday people who altered the face of war are our channel's very purpose. Don't let the next one pass you by. The comprehensive testing program started on February 1st. 20 M2 weapons from 3 different manufacturers were personally modified by Green. Each one went through rigorous testing: standard firing, cold chamber testing at -50 Fahrenheit, extended firing of 5,000 rounds, deliberate fouling, high-altitude chamber testing simulating 30,000 feet. The outcomes were uniform across all 20 weapons. Malfunction rate in cold conditions, 0.8%. Standard unmodified weapons showed 68%. Green's modification reduced cold weather malfunctions by 99%. However, applying this across the entire military inventory posed huge obstacles. By February 1943, roughly 96,000 M2 weapons were in service, with another 60,000 in production. The Ordnance Department calculated it would take 18 months and $12 million to alter all existing weapons. General Leslie McNair and General Henry Arnold both demanded immediate action, but the Ordnance Department demanded further testing. The bureaucratic struggle was settled when Lieutenant General William Knudsen, Director of War Production, visited Eglin Field in person. After witnessing the modified weapons fire perfectly, Knudsen asked Green 2 straightforward questions. Can this modification be done quickly by trained armorers on weapons already in the field? And can production lines adopt this change without delaying output? Green said yes to both. It takes about 45 minutes per weapon. Production lines simply machine to a different dimension. No new machinery is required. Knudsen made a decision on the spot: immediate implementation across all service branches, all existing weapons to be modified during standard maintenance. All production lines would adopt the new specifications immediately. The modification would be designated Modification 743, but it became known as Green's Fix. The implementation showcased American industrial power at its finest. Within 1 week, detailed instructions were sent to every armory. Within 2 weeks, production lines had integrated the new specifications. Within 1 month, mobile modification teams were working at airbases throughout the United States and England. Within 3 months, over 40,000 weapons had been modified. Within 6 months, all 96,000 existing weapons carried Green's modification. The impact on combat was instantaneous. In March 1943, before the modification, 8th Air Force bombers reported weapon malfunctions on 57% of missions. In April, with 30% modified, malfunction rates fell to 38%. By June, with nearly all guns modified, malfunction rates settled under 4%. Green's modification reduced weapon failures by 94%. More importantly, bomber loss rates linked to inoperative armament fell dramatically. In the first quarter of 1943, 14 B-17s were confirmed lost after complete weapons failure. In the second quarter, after modification, only 2. The modification was directly rescuing bomber crews. German Luftwaffe pilots observed the change. Intelligence reports from captured pilots indicated they recognized the defensive fire from American bombers had become far more consistent. One June report stated that American gunners now maintained steady fire through the entire engagement. The previous pattern of weapons failures is no longer seen. Attacking American bombers is now substantially more hazardous. Ground forces saw comparable improvements. Tank commanders reported vehicle-mounted .50s now worked reliably. Infantry heavy weapons platoons found their .5s needed less upkeep. The Pacific Theater witnessed improvements in high humidity and saltwater environments. Navy ships reported fewer jams during anti-aircraft actions, a critical factor against kamikaze assaults. One especially striking instance happened on November 2, 1943. Captain Robert Johnson of the 56th Fighter Group, piloting a modified P-47, was struck by cannon fire. His plane took 21 cannon hits and over 100 machine gun strikes. His guns continued firing the entire time. Army engineers later determined that without Green's modification ensuring weapon reliability, Johnson would most likely have been killed. Instead, he lived to become one of America's top aces with 27 victories. The technical impact extended beyond the M2. The concept of operational tolerance affected all future automatic weapons design. Post-war weapons like the M60 machine gun and M16 rifle included clearances designed for reliability over theoretical perfection. Green's insight became a cornerstone of American weapons development. Samuel Green was awarded the Medal for Merit in April 1943, presented by General Arnold. The citation stated, "For extraordinary achievement in weapons development, specifically for creating a modification to the Browning M2 machine gun that dramatically enhanced reliability and saved numerous American lives in combat." But Green remained uneasy with the attention. He attended the ceremony only because Arnold personally asked him. He accepted the medal with a short thank you, refused all interviews, and went back to Hartford and his job at Pratt & Whitney. Co-workers said Green showed the medal once, then put it in his desk drawer, where it stayed, until he retired in 1951. Green received hundreds of letters from servicemen whose lives had been saved by his reliable weapons. He saved every letter in a wooden box in his basement. Staff Sergeant Michael Chan, a waist gunner on a B-17, wrote in July 1943, "Mr. Green, our plane was assaulted by 6 German fighters last week. All 13 guns fired perfectly. We shot down 2 fighters and damaged 3 more. Before your modification, at least half our guns would have jammed. We would probably be dead now. Because of you, we made it home. Thank you for giving us guns we can trust." The post-war military analysis showed that the Ordnance Department had expended over $2 million and 5 months chasing standard solutions that did not work. Green found success in 1 week with basic tools. A 1946 War Department study concluded this delay cost an estimated 64 bomber aircraft and 640 airmen, plus an uncounted number of ground casualties. The study suggested that military development integrate methods for assessing unconventional answers from non-traditional sources. Green worked at Pratt & Whitney until his retirement in 1956. During those 13 post-war years, he resolved dozens of manufacturing issues and mentored younger toolmakers. He almost never spoke of his Medal for Merit. When questioned, he would usually say, "I fixed a gun that was broken. That was my job. Fixing things is what toolmakers do." Green died in 1971 at the age of 80. His obituary was short, noting his career and his Medal for Merit. It did not mention that his modification had been incorporated into over 500,000 M2 machine guns. It did not note that his operational tolerance principle influenced every American automatic weapon designed since. Green would have wanted it that way. The M2.50 caliber machine gun remains in active service today. As of 2024, the weapon serves with United States forces and over 100 allied nations. Modern M2s still incorporate clearances originating from Green's original modification. The weapon has been in continuous production since 1921, the longest-serving machine gun in American military history. Its legendary reliability leads directly back to Green's work. Total M2 production exceeds 3 million weapons, with approximately 2.1 million incorporating Green's modification. Everyone profited from the insight of a civilian toolmaker who knew that machines communicate with those who pay attention. From World War II through Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and continuing today, American service members have relied on .50 caliber weapons that function because Samuel Green filed down a bolt carrier in his basement workshop. The modification technique became standard training for military armorers. The procedure Green created is taught at every United States military armorer school. The focus on functional testing over precise measurement that Green advocated became doctrine across all military maintenance operations. The wider lesson involves institutional receptiveness to unconventional answers. The Army initially resisted because the solution came from an uncredentialed civilian who broke the rules. Only intervention from senior leadership overcame this opposition. General Knudsen wrote in his memoir that the military must establish procedures for spotting innovations, no matter their origin. Bright ideas emerge from unanticipated places. Our task is to acknowledge them, not to filter them by credentials. In 1988, the Smithsonian inaugurated an exhibit on civilian contributions to World War II military technology. Samuel Green was featured prominently, with displays containing his original tools, notebook, and the first modified bolt carrier. His Medal for Merit, donated by his family, was shown next to letters from servicemen. The exhibit was viewed by over 3 million visitors, finally giving Green's accomplishment the recognition it deserved 17 years after his death. Modern military weapons development includes formal processes inspired in part by Green's example. DARPA actively seeks unconventional concepts from non-traditional sources. The Army Research Laboratory runs programs that invite civilian engineers to tackle military problems. The Ordnance School teaches Green's modification as a case study of successful innovation from unexpected quarters. The weapons community remembers Green through informal traditions. Instructors cite Green's rule when teaching modifications: measure twice, file once, test thoroughly. The annual Green Award honors individuals who realize major improvements through straightforward, practical solutions. The final analysis must recognize both the scale of Green's achievement and the situation that demanded it. He resolved a critical problem that was killing American servicemen. His solution was elegant, practical, and instantly applicable, but his solution was only necessary because the established systems had broken down. Inflexible commitment to specifications, rejection of unconventional methods, and prejudice against non-credentialed innovators had prevented a solution through official channels. Today, whenever a .50 caliber machine gun fires reliably in Arctic cold, desert heat, or jungle humidity, that reliability can be traced to Samuel Green's modification. When Special Forces operators depend on their weapons in extreme environments, they are relying on principles Green established, the civilian toolmaker who never finished high school, but transformed the most widespread heavy machine gun in military history. Samuel Green died quietly, lived humbly, and achieved immortality by making one gun work better. His story demonstrates that the most crucial innovations frequently come from unanticipated sources, that hands-on wisdom can surpass theoretical knowledge, that resolving problems is more important than adhering to rules. The mathematics were always straightforward. Standard M2 weapons, 68% malfunction rate in cold conditions. Green-modified weapons, 0.8% malfunction rate. The difference? Thousands of service members who returned home because their guns worked, thousands of families that stayed whole, thousands of lives saved by a civilian toolmaker with a file and the conviction that functioning was better than perfect. The weapon displayed in the Smithsonian, serial number 43-27891, is a Green-modified M2 that served with the 8th Air Force. It fired over 80,000 rounds in combat without a single jam. The placard describes its combat record but doesn't mention the Connecticut toolmaker who made that record possible. But armorers remember, veterans remember. Anyone who ever depended on a .50 caliber machine gun that worked carries Samuel Green's legacy forward. The civilian who made America's .50 caliber never jam taught lessons that go beyond weapons development. Sometimes the best answer defies conventional thinking. Sometimes expertise exists without official credentials. Sometimes repairing what is broken is more important than protecting what is supposedly perfect. Samuel Green's impossible trick made the impossible achievable. He made the most utilized heavy machine gun in history, reliable under every condition. He saved thousands of lives. He asked for nothing except the chance to fix what was malfunctioning. That is the real account of how one civilian toolmaker, working with a file and conviction, made America's .50 caliber machine gun never jam again, and in doing so became one of the quiet heroes who helped win World War II. The story of Samuel Green is a powerful reminder that revolution often starts with a single, simple fix. If you were inspired by this unsung hero, show your support, subscribe to Rootvolutionary, ring the bell, and join us as we dig into the stories that changed our world. Thank you for watching.